I noted they're playing in the waves just like we were, and I noticed it the second it happened. They went from having a great time to all I could see were each of their heads just barely bobbing on the water. And I zoom in because I happen to have a really long lens on me, and I can see a look of terror in the man's face.
Oh my
And
God.
I thought, oh my God, it's happening to them. And then I see Mark paddling over to them, which gets me extremely nervous because I
Mm-hmm.
know that helping someone who might be drowning is the fastest way for yourself to drown. And his wife starts screaming, help, help. And Mark gets over there. And he later told me that he said very explicitly, hold on to the board, do not grab onto me. And the man grabbed on. The woman was fine. She said, I'm a strong swimmer, I'm okay. But the man was freaking out.
Welcome to the Where Have You Been podcast. I'm your host, Bill Ream, and each week on the pod, I have conversations with incredible guests from all walks of life. Expect to hear funny, crazy, emotional, life-changing, and even sometimes life-threatening stories and experiences that will entertain and inspire you. As always, I appreciate your likes, subscriptions, ratings, and reviews wherever you are listening. It doesn't sound like much, but it truly helps the pod get to the ears of more people who may enjoy it. And check out the website, whybpodcast.com, for links to the socials where you can find pictures from the guests and their stories, and also buy merch if you're so inclined. Now let's get to this week's episode. Thank you for being here. It is time for another episode of the Where Have You Been podcast, and we have another unique guest today. I don't care one way or the other if we have uniqueness or the same type of people with the same backgrounds or similar backgrounds, but it is nice to have someone who has a little bit of a different tale to tell. And so today we have a full-time traveler, a photographer, and an author on the podcast, all wrapped in one. We have Michele on the show today. And so if you wouldn't mind telling the listeners, Michele, who are you?
Yeah, of course. Hi, Bill. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you today. Let's see. I am a Coloradan, a mountain girl at heart who had a really hard time settling down, I guess you would say, as an adult. Um, my husband and I kind of tried going the route of all the usual ways of life, buying a house, settling down, doing the thing that everyone kind of expects you to do. And we just found that our wings were much stronger than our roots. And so we took to the road about 13 years ago and started doing part-time travel just in our truck camper as frequently as our schedules would allow. And then our dreams to live on the road full-time took hold really quickly, and we worked hard to pursue that dream. And now we've been full-time on the road for a total of 6 years. We have two different RVs. We have a travel trailer and a tiny but mighty truck camper that we kind of alternate our travels between. And we travel around the western US for about 2/3 of the year and then spend about a third of the year in Mexico.
Awesome. And you've been other places with it, right? You've been in Canada as well?
Yeah, we did the drive all the way up to Alaska last year, and that was actually not in one of our vehicles. It was kind of a unique situation. Some friends of ours were moving to Alaska and needed help moving and asked if we'd be willing to make the trip with them and drive one of their vehicles. And we had that 3-week window free on the calendar, and I'm not sure who would say no to that. So we got the opportunity to drive to Alaska. We camped all the way through Canada, British Columbia, the Yukon Territory, and then once we got our friends safely delivered to their new residence, they lent us their kind of camping rig, and we had a full week in Alaska to explore before flying back to the lower 48. And that was
Oh,
a really special experience that just whet our appetite, and now we're just dying to do it again with more time.
that's really awesome.
Yeah.
So, and I want to get more into like how this started for you. I know you said, and I loved what you said. It's like a great quote, like your wings were stronger than your roots. But
Yeah.
before we get into that part of it, I always like to make sure early on in the podcast, I make sure that people know where they can find you. So I know you have a website. I know you have some socials. Would you mind kind of putting those out there for everyone?
Of course, yeah. So all of our kind of road life resides under the moniker Two Happy Campers. So we have a website, twohappycampers.com. I do a lot of posting on there, and then I do a little bit of posting here and there on Instagram, and that's also Two Happy Campers.
Excellent. And I'm actually really surprised that even if it, I don't know how long you've had the actual website, but it just seems like something that would have been taken to happy campers. It just,
You would think, yeah,
that's,
but we've had it
that's
for like 12 years or something. So,
excellent. And I'll make sure
yeah.
I put those in the show notes as well so people know where to find you.
Great, thank
But
you. Yeah, we have a lot of resources and stories and all like the blog is rich with resources and stories about this lifestyle.
and I assume if people want to learn more about the lifestyle itself, obviously the website is the place to go, but they can probably reach out to you as well, right? And ask you questions.
Absolutely. Yes. I love inspiring people to pursue their dreams and pursue an unconventional way of life. And so anyone that wants to email me, which is hello@twohappycampers.com, I'm more than happy to answer questions.
And is that the best place to go to find the book as well?
Yes, we have our book 82 Days in Baja is can be found on twohappycampers.com.
Beautiful. So it's just the two of you, right? And
Correct. Yep.
so do you still have sort of a home base where you at least keep, because you said you have two different like vehicular travel options.
Yes.
Like what do you do with the second, whatever one you're not using? What does it look
Yeah,
like?
that's a great question. I am a big proponent for anyone that wants to live on the road full time of having some type of home base. And that could be like a family member's driveway or the back corner of their yard or maybe an RV park in your hometown. Something because no matter what, you have to have an address. You have to have be a resident in a state somewhere. You need a place where you can do doctor's appointments, and it's very beneficial to have a home base. And so we bought a piece of raw land in Colorado, and that gives us our residency, and it allows us, we have a storage unit on it with kind of the belongings we didn't want to purge when we sold our house, and that is where we store whichever home on wheels we're not using at the time. And that is really nice. It gives us a sense of home even though we're not there that much. It provides a little bit of stability where living on the road full time can leave you feeling a little rudderless and kind of like you're just floating around. And I'll say that's for me personally. There's probably people out there that may not feel that way, but if you are worried about that at all when entertaining the idea of full-time travel, having some kind of home base, and there's a lot of different ways to do it, I think can be really helpful.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you that. Like, does it get to a point where it almost feels like you kind of need grounding, even though the on the road stuff I'm sure is so exciting and exhilarating, and I'm sure there's challenges along the way, probably all the time. But like, do you get to a point where after, and you've learned this after so many years of doing it, that yeah, after so many months or so many whatever how long, we just kind of need to go back, quote unquote home and just kind of recharge.
Absolutely. And it is exciting and exhilarating, but it also can get fatiguing and mundane and all the things. It's funny how normal it becomes. I think anything you do in life, once you do it for a long period of time, no matter how exotic it looks on the outside, it just becomes normal. But in regards to your question, yes, when we're not on our property, we move locations every like 2 to 7 days. And that can get tiring after a while, especially if we're somewhere that we're not familiar with. There's just constant decisions having to be made about where are we going next, where are we staying, what's the route that we're taking to get there, where are we doing groceries, where are we doing laundry, where are we getting water, where are we getting rid of our trash, and that we it's decision fatigue, and we've learned over the years how to combat that decision fatigue, because I think that's what gets people over this lifestyle really quickly, and the home base is one of those solves for that problem. And we spend in the spring and the fall about 4 to 6 weeks on our property, and it is such a nice time to slow down. We can give attention to other things that we just don't have time for when we're moving all the time. And it's funny though how after that 4 to 6 weeks, it feels like an eternity and we are ready to go. So we get that chance to recharge and get excited again about our travels.
Yeah, and I was going to say that like you do this because you love it. It's not like because you started, doing the photography and or maybe you did the photography before, I don't know, but and you're doing the blog and you have the website and all that stuff. Like it's not like you feel necessarily like, well, we have to keep doing this now because this is what we said our lifestyle is going to be. You thoroughly enjoy this. Like this is what you want out of life right now, right?
Absolutely. We have the hardest time imagining ourselves in one place. And we talk about it all the time. We're like, okay, if we had to settle down somewhere, where would it be? And even the hypothetical question pains us because we can't imagine sitting still somewhere all the time. We love being on the move, and we do call it a bit of an affliction that both my husband and I tend to get bored really easily. And so the
Hopefully not with each
ability,
other, just bored
no,
in one place.
yeah, luckily we share the same like just itch to see new places and have new experiences. And so yeah, this lifestyle is it's so wonderful, and I'm so glad that it's even an option of something we can do, because from the moment we bought our first house, we were just like, this doesn't feel right. But it definitely takes some creativity to figure out kind of what your other options are.
It's crazy. Like, did you meet on like a always want to keep on the move dating site or something? Like, how do you find someone else with that exact same want and desire?
Oh, I think that my husband and I are really lucky in that we were 21 when we met, and of course when you're 21 you feel like a sophisticated adult, but looking back we were just kids.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like we've really grown up together, and we started our business together in 2004, and so we've been together 24/7 for 21 years. And so I think we've just grown together and have been lucky to grow in the same direction and have the same interests all this whole time.
Really excellent. You guys are really lucky, blessed, however you
Very,
want to
yeah.
put it.
Yes, we realize that.
And I just want to ask you before we get into like the meat of the episode, meat of the podcast is when you were talking about the fatigue of going to new places over and over again, do you try to find a way sometimes to maybe scatter that out? So maybe you go somewhere familiar and then you go somewhere that's new and maybe a couple new places, but then you try to find somewhere familiar again, even if it's not going back home.
That's a great
Can you do that?
question. Yeah, and what has happened is, so our income source is that we are wedding photographers, and we photograph destination weddings at Colorado's ski resorts and destination ranches all around the state. And we kind of carved out that niche for ourselves back in 2006. And while we tried working through the winter, it was a very difficult thing to do. We found that the bulk of our work came like June through October, and we eventually just gave up the fight. It was like, why fight trying to book work through the winter when we'd rather be traveling anyways? So what I'm getting at is that we still have to be in Colorado June through October. And while there's a part of me that yearns to be completely location independent and get to go wherever I want, whenever I want, I have come to realize that it's a really grounding force, like a good thing for us, that we do have to be in Colorado for that chunk of the year, because we get the chance to see friends and family. We get the chance to have a little bit more of a routine, and we get the chance to be in a familiar place and not have to constantly be dealing with all those decisions that I mentioned earlier. And so it feels like a really good balance of getting to do more exotic, exciting travel to new places and balancing it out with familiarity and some structure in our year.
I guess I'm a little bit surprised in that I know that it's probably not as popular to do winter weddings in Colorado, but it's so beautiful with the snow and of course there's always places with snow, but there's I don't know. I guess I'm a little bit surprised, but
Well, the problem, Mark and I have said this for years. We are the problem that creates that visual, because as photographers, you only show the most beautiful aspects of any wedding or any, shoot that you do. And you don't show the 30-mile-an-hour winds and the blizzard and the freezing cold. And it's just never as picture perfect as people think it's going to be.
Okay, so it's
Like
your fault.
perfect
Okay.
days were, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So they were very logistically challenging, and yeah, we don't miss those days.
I guess I wouldn't either. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Very fair. So, all right. Well, let's move on to the heart of the episode. Like I said, so you can do this however you'd like to. You can actually list, or you don't have to. You already kind of mentioned a range, but let me just say, Michelle, where have you been?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. I will start because this feels like the kind of foundation of how we ended up where we are. In 2010, we had finally we were working our way out of the debt we acquired starting our business. We were feeling really good with our business and where it was headed, and we said, okay, I think we finally have the money to start traveling. Because the only travel we've been doing for several years was either to Iowa to visit Mark's family or to Arizona to visit mine. That's all we could afford to do. And so we booked our first ever overseas flight and we went to Ireland and we were pumped. Um, and so that's like the first and actually the only place we've been um, to that side of the world. And we were there a week and we spent so much money on that trip with flight and hotel and rental car and eating out and all the things. And it led to this long conversation of we have all this free time in the winter, but we don't have heaps and heaps of money. So, how can we travel more and spend less? And that is when we started looking at vans and truck campers and things that we could explore our own country on four wheels.
Let me ask you real
Because,
quickly,
yeah,
because we
go ahead.
probably aren't going to go back to Europe again. What was Ireland like for you? I mean, besides expensive, was it? Did you love it as far as just a destination?
I did. We now to save money, we went in kind of an off season, so it was very dreary and cold and rainy, which is not my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
However, to balance that out, I just love new places and new experiences, and it was just a week full of that. So I have nothing but good memories from that, and I'm really glad we got the opportunity to do it. And I will never say never on Europe because you can ship your vehicle across the Atlantic for a reasonable price.
There you
And that's
go.
always something that we're entertaining. So you just never know.
That's awesome. Are there any stories or experiences that you had there that you remembered that just stand out before we move back into the RVing?
Yeah, I think generally speaking, we called it our driving and drinking tour, not at the
That's
same
that's
time.
that's Ireland, right? I mean,
But basically, it was we would just drive all day and see the sights, and then at the end of the day, go to a pub and drink and enjoy. Like any pub you went into had live music, and that was kind of what the trip was all about. It was really
and all the
cool.
Guinness that you could drink.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah. It was really fun.
So so it sounds like we may see in the next few years. I'm going to keep an eye on everything you're doing. There may be a European RV trip.
We there's a lot of options out there.
Nice.
So yeah.
I would really look forward to that. I think that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I think so too.
So that kind of that decision of like, listen, we just spent way more money than we wanted to. That kind of kicked you into buying a vehicle or looking at vehicles that you could travel in the U.S.
Yeah, and it also just kind of was a reminder that we there was so much to see in our home country that we'd never seen before. So it was like, let's take advantage of that. That will be cheaper and more accessible. And living in Colorado, there was countless places in Utah we'd wanted to see for a long time that we'd never seen before. And so that's where the idea of the truck camper was born from. And so in those early years, it led to just really deep exploration of our favorite states, which would be Colorado, Utah, and Arizona primarily. We've spent a lot of time like in the on the back roads and in the back country of those places, like very remote, little known places that you don't see a lot of people, which are kind of our favorite places to go.
So when it started, was it really just like for the pleasure of it, or did you actually do you do wedding photography outside of Colorado when you're on the road?
No, we like stockpile our money like little squirrels so that we can take off the rest of the year.
Have you ever thought about expanding that way so that you could actually take other destinations as like a place to go and still work, but it's, you're working for how many days?
Yeah, we haven't. We really enjoy kind of segregating our year into like our work months and then our travel months. And I
Gotcha.
think I really enjoy content creation, and we're not like making a bunch of money off that right now with our travels, but I do really enjoy like that time of the year is when I get to really play with my creative side and do travel photography and other things. And
Hmm.
I really enjoy the time to do that and take a break from the wedding photography.
If it gave you the opportunity to go, like, say, all the way to the East Coast or something, would you entertain it?
Sure, I would definitely not say no. And I mean, we have photographed weddings in Maine, Rhode Island, and Pennsylvania. So they've happened through word of mouth. It's not advertising, but if someone asks, we definitely will go.
And do you take the RV when you go there? I assume, right?
It depends on what's going on. If it's in the middle of our busy season in Colorado, we don't have the time to do that. So we have to fly and then get back here so that we can, we have just constant weddings weekend after weekend, we just don't have the time to like drive that many miles and drive back.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But it would be cool if you could incorporate that somehow and get paid to do it.
Yeah,
So
yeah, for
awesome.
sure. Yeah.
But anyway, I'm sorry. I'm kind of taking you
Oh
off the
no.
rails. So
No, tangents are great. I'm down.
yeah. So where? Oh, where were you? So you
Yeah, so
found
we
your
start
first.
in terms of where we've been, it's a lot of the western states. We did kind of we were on the road. Our very first full-time year on the road was in 2017 and 2018. And then a really unique once in a lifetime job opportunity came up for my husband in Idaho. So we ended up buying a house there, settling down for 2 years. And so that gave us the opportunity to see that part of the world. We saw a lot of Idaho, Washington, Oregon. And then once we left there 2 years later and set back on the road full time again, which was 5 years ago, then we expanded our travels into Mexico, and that became a whole new world for us. And now that's where we spend our entire winter, if not a little more than that, every year. So we've now been to 16 states around Mexico.
That's awesome. And are
Yes.
you still kind of continuing each year to maybe find a new place each time, even though you may go to the same places you're familiar with? Do you try to kind of expand that a little bit each year, or
A little bit, yeah. We're terrible planners. We're very spontaneous. So it's impossible to say now where we'll be, in 6 months and what exactly where the road will be taking us. So we just have like a general idea, but you never know because that's the thing about traveling on four wheels. There's roads everywhere and you can go a lot of places, which is fun. We love just how many opportunities there are to go different places.
do you watch like travel shows or anything like that? Like if there's an episode of something, say, I know Bourdain has been gone, rest in peace, for some time, but if there's a show where there maybe he's in Mexico, do you ever watch something like that and go, okay, well, I like that's a cool. We should go there.
Yeah, I loved his shows a lot. I don't have a traditional television, but I will say if I'm going to sit down and watch anything, it's pretty much travel vlogs on YouTube. So
There you
that
go.
is a
There's
lot of the time
there's
where I'll,
a
yeah.
great podcast if you're just listening that people tell their stories about different places, and sometimes they've been to like Mexico or the Western U.S. and may have some tips for you too.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Anyway,
love hearing about, there's just, it gets overwhelming too. Do you ever find that? Like there's just so many places to go, it's hard to pick one.
absolutely. So even since I've started this, which was just in March, I my bucket list has expanded 3 times over just listening to stories, because there's places that you learn about them in school and you really don't give them another thought, because why? And then people
Right.
tell you that they've been there and they tell you these beautiful stories and experiences meeting people and seeing these old buildings and things that just like are sometimes life altering, and it's just like,
Right.
okay, yeah, now I got to go there too, thanks.
Yeah. And something I learned really early on after we got our truck camper was I thought naively that we were going to get to head out on the road and start checking places off our list. And the
You're
exact
adding.
opposite happened. We just started learning about new places everywhere we went or meeting people, and it just kept getting longer and longer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good problem to have.
Oh, are you kidding me? This is like hard to call a problem. How lucky are we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess where would you like to go from there? Do you actually want to start do you want to kind of go chronologically? I have some people who do that, or I just have people who go, you know what, this is one of my favorite stories to tell about when I was in this place. I know you gave me some that they sound very, very interesting, but yeah, start wherever you'd like as far as,
Yeah.
just tell me.
I think travel like has such a wonderful, it's such a great tool to impact your life in a positive way. And I would say that our adventures down south on the to Mexico have been some of the most impactful and beautiful travels that we've ever had. And is, I mean, there's a reason why we keep going back every year. And I guess I'll try to draw some specific stories.
Well, can you maybe try to put into words why? Like, what has Mexico meant to you that's so appealing?
Yeah, so I'll start by saying it's a very interesting thing telling anyone that you're going to travel to Mexico because you get um, a very divided response. So, what happened before we ever went and we started telling people we wanted to go, there were people we knew that had already been and traveled down there and to the Baja California Peninsula specifically in Mexico. And anyone that had been, their response was just hands down, you have to go. It's amazing. Have a great time. Anyone who hadn't been would immediately get concerned. They'd say, that's dangerous. Don't go. That's a terrible idea. And it was very interesting to experience that in itself. Like, why, like, everyone that's been says go. Everyone who hasn't been is, you know, thinks that we're crazy. And which just made us that much more curious and intent on going and figuring out for ourselves what it's really like there. And it really drove home how powerful our media is because that's where that opinion was coming from for anyone that hasn't been there. They were just relaying stories to us that they'd heard on the news. And because that's so strong in our culture that Mexico is dangerous, we absolutely had nerves the first time we went. We were on edge. We were overwhelmed by the language barrier. We don't speak Spanish, although we're working on that every year. And there was this nagging thought in the back of our head the whole time of like, oh my God, like, are we doing something really stupid? And our first ever trip down there was 5 weeks long and it was really hard to leave. And it turned out that not a single bad thing happened. We never even once felt nervous. And we were so humbled by how kind and welcoming the Mexican people are, especially since, I mean, that very first trip, I felt like such a fool for not being able to speak the language. And now at least I can fumble through interactions, but their patience for us
Mm-hmm.
was, I was so humbled by it and I just had so much gratitude for how welcoming the people were. And then outside of the people, the landscapes are phenomenal and the fact that so it's 1,000 mile long peninsula and you have the Sea of Cortez side of the peninsula on the east side and then the Pacific side on the west, offering hundreds, if not thousands, of places where you can just pull up on the beach and set up camp for free.
Wow.
Some of them are paid, but there's still a lot for free. A lot of places where you can go be completely alone. There's places where you can go and be with all kinds of gringos and have the time of your life. But the I'd never spent a lot of time on the ocean, neither had my husband. I'd only ever known as beach destinations, as like overcrowded, popular places to go, like Florida and Southern California and things like that. So to be sit on a beach entirely by ourselves, pristine white sand, crystal clear turquoise water, and get to really interact with the ocean in a way that we never have before was so incredible. Like to sit and just watch the tide. Like I've always had like a general, just vague idea of what a tide is, but like to sit, like you park close enough to the water that throughout the day you see the water recede and get really far away from the truck, and then it comes back in and it gets really close. And for people like my husband and I who are very curious about life, that prompted us. We would just sit in our camp chairs and talk about the moon and the sun and the gravitational pull and all these things for hours because you're watching it happen in real time, and it's amazing. And then we
Wow.
would set out on our paddle boards, and all of a sudden we have dolphins coming up to us and
Oh, jeez.
stingrays and things that I would have thought you need to, pay loads of money to go on a tour to experience. And now it's just happening right out our back door, essentially. And then the sunrises and sunsets are phenomenal. And then to top it all off, the food is just incredible. So like Mexico now, for me, I'm just like the place is amazing. And for photographers especially, like my husband and myself, we really love dynamic and changing light, and there's just a really special quality about the light there and on the ocean. And there's just a lot of things happening that just seem to feed our soul while we're there. And the last one that I'll mention that was completely unexpected is that when you live on the road full time, it's easy to feel like an outcast. And especially to your friends and family who don't really understand why you've chosen to live the way that you do. And when we're living in Colorado in the summer, camping all over the state, the summertime is a lot about families and kids being out camping for the summertime. So we don't really run into people like us. But in Baja, a lot of people that live like us go down there for the winter, and we're just constantly meeting new people and building new friendships with people that live like us, and that's been extremely rewarding as well.
So I have a question and a statement.
Yeah.
And so, first off, something that we've talked about, I think maybe a couple of times on the podcast, but I think something that we need to keep in mind as Americans, I think that what we listen to in our news must be truth, even though we understand that there's this network is this way, this network is this way, whatever. We're still getting the real story of what's happening in our own country.
Yeah.
And I'm telling people, it's not the truth. I mean,
Yeah.
if you talk to people outside the country that are getting their news that is actually accurate, they're not one sided or the other sided, I guess.
Yeah.
It's it's we're not getting the full story. And I'm not saying it's like a communist country where we're getting propaganda, but there is some level of that. Like we want to hear what's, I don't know, like what, or they want us to hear what they want us to hear, I guess. And so I
Yeah.
think we have to take what we hear. There's probably some degree of something with it, with every bit of it. Like there's some degree of truth. There are places in Mexico, I'm sure, that are unsafe. Don't go to those
Yes.
places.
Right.
There's places in America that are not safe. Don't go to
Exactly.
those places.
Exactly.
But
That's what I tell people.
talk to, like you said, talk to people who have been there and do your own research, and chances are you're going to find some beautiful places and be okay. And
Yes. And like generally speaking, I like to tell people like if you have a dream or somewhere you want to go that feels really kind of out there, talk to people that have done it or have similar dreams, because other people that don't can't really understand where you're coming from, they're going to hit you with all kinds of crazy stuff that's going to kind of deflate you. And it's like find people that'll help support that and build you up rather than the opposite. And so we really learned to take with a grain of salt anyone that would tell us, do not go to Mexico.
yeah, and I think that if you are a very adventurous soul, you probably, I think people like that, I would venture to say like us, but I don't even feel like maybe I'm quite as adventurous as you and your husband. But I think we're in the minority, and it's maybe. I don't know what that percentage is of people who just have that, like, let's go, let's just experience it and do it. And
Yeah,
so
and
most of the people you talk to are going to be the opposite and going to be like, oh gosh, I would never do that. I can't believe you're going to do that.
right. And I will point out, you just said you think we're probably more adventurous than you. I don't really consider myself an adventurous person. I think that I do a lot of things that freak me out, but I do them anyways. And then I learn, oh, that wasn't something to be scared of. And then that shows me that the world is such a more welcoming place than it's made out to be sometimes through the media or the internet. Like I find that being out in the world is such a different experience than seeing the world through a screen.
Yeah, I don't think you have to be fearless to be adventurous, though. And so,
Yeah.
some of the things that I've done, which I feel like were very adventurous, I was scared as heck,
Yeah,
and
but
I
you do it
still did
anyways.
them. And
Yeah,
so, I
exactly.
guess there's some level of adventurousness to me as well. But yeah, I think, again, I think you have to listen to your own heart and your own, what you
Yes.
feel is right, and make it happen. Make it happen.
Yes. Yes,
Because, like
exactly.
you said, you take the chances and you come away with beautiful stories and experiences. And if you had never done that, maybe you never go back to Mexico again. Maybe you never go to Mexico if you
Yeah,
listen to the naysayers or whatever. So
exactly. And now, because of traveling to Mexico, I have met so many world travelers and I hear about their travels to dozens and dozens of countries. And everyone seems to have a similar takeaway, which is that the world is mostly made up of good people wanting to be kind to strangers. And everyone I've talked to about their world travels have had amazing experiences. And that's really opened my eyes up to just the overall kind of beauty of the world and makes me just want to get out there and see more.
yeah, and that's something else we've touched on too. Like, most people in the world have a very similar life to us, not maybe not necessarily lifestyle. Things are different in different cultures, but most people have to work. They provide for their families. They want to have fun. They want to
Yeah.
love and care and be cared for. And like, that's just sort of like, and they want to take little vacations, and they're
Yeah.
doing the same things that we're doing.
Yeah.
And most people also, I think, in other countries, just as in, I hope, most of the US, understand that we're all human beings and we need each other. And it's wonderful to meet new people. I love meeting people that are from other countries, and I love
Yeah.
trying to interact, even if the language barrier is there. But try to ask as many questions as I can. My question for
Yes.
you was going to be, and I think I know the answer from what you've said so far, but when you're meeting these people on your travels, especially in Mexico, how many of those, you said you've made friends, so how many of those turn into, like, you know, maybe not lifelong, we don't know yet, but lifelong friendships? Like, how many of these people do you keep in touch with? Maybe not every day, every month, but your Facebook friends, or maybe you do text
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
call each other.
There's two couples we met down in Baja who we ended up we've spent months traveling together now, which is just such a gift to have those people to share the experiences together. And then we have other people we won't talk to all year, and then all of a sudden, inevitably, in like October, November, the text messages will start coming in of like, when are you going to Baja? And like several Canadians that we've made friends with, and everyone is always like, if you ever want to come visit me in like this place or that place, wherever these people are from, they're like, our doors are open. And so I would say we've got probably five really close friends now that we've made down there, and then a few dozen of like people that we're just excited to reconnect with next time we're in Mexico.
I love that so much. Is
I
it
do too. It's great.
possible, without putting you on the spot, to just tell me any of the stories of meeting any of these people? Because I love that. Like, how did it happen? What was the
Yeah,
conversation like?
sure. Yeah, I love these stories too. They're really fun because so I'll start by saying Mark and I are introverts, and we can be very socially awkward and very have a hard time just kind of kicking off a conversation with a stranger. And so this was, I think, 3 years ago down in Baja. We were pulling into this little, um, I don't, it was a person's like mango and avocado farm. It was run by an American expat and his Mexican wife. They used to be full-time travelers on the road just like us, and they'd started this little farm in Mexico and created like a dozen little campsites in their orchard where you could park. So they were creating this little haven for people like us to come enjoy their property in Mexico. They built this incredible community kitchen that everyone can cook in and do their dishes, and they would make fresh coffee and baked goods every morning. And they just created, they, because they lived on the road, they knew what we were looking for and created this such a great haven. And so we'd never been there before, and we read all these rave reviews and we were excited to go. But when we showed up, we were a little apprehensive because we like our space, and the campsites were very close together. Like, reach your hand out your door and you're touching the truck next to you, kind of thing.
Mhm.
And that just felt a little tight for us, but we it was not an easy to reach place. We'd driven a ways into the backcountry to even get to this little spot. So it was like, well, we're here. Let's make the most of it and see what it's like. And Mark will never forget the couple that was parked next to us. The guy gets out and like immediately is like, hey, and introduces himself and starts talking. And Mark is just like, oh my God, I'm not like ready for this. And then his wife comes out and her and I get to talking, and we kind of like hit it off pretty quickly. We can tell we have a lot of things in common. And I guess I'll back up and say the icebreaker was the fact that we both owned the same type of truck camper, like made by the same company. So
Okay.
that is a very like great place to start. Like, you have the same, so you kind of ask about that, and then the conversation evolves from there. And every morning that we woke up at this little ranch, I guess we'll call it, and went into the community kitchen for pastries and coffee, everyone would gather around and we'd all kind of feel each other out, like, oh, are you leaving today? And this couple that was parked next to us, we kind of were like, they were like, I don't know, we were thinking of staying. Are you staying? And we were like, yeah, yeah, I think we'll stay another day. And we ended up staying, I think, 5 days and just really hitting it off with this couple that we were parked right next to. And when we parted ways, it was like, we've got to meet up somewhere. We've got to camp together. I think we'd have fun traveling together. And we I texted with Darcy like all throughout the summer, and they were in Washington and we were in Colorado, and was no way really for us to meet up. And I was like, well, what are you guys doing this winter? And they said, well, we were thinking if we were going to drive out to Florida and like do our whole winter in Florida. And I was like, oh, well, that's too bad. And then they said a few weeks later, she was like, we're thinking we might go back to Baja and do that again. And I got really excited because we'd only seen them that first time at that ranch that we'd met, and we just had an idea that we would like enjoy each other's company, but we hadn't tested that out, like actually traveling together. And it was the following winter, we they headed down there a little bit earlier than us, and we got down there and we're like, all right, we crossed the border, we're here, where are you guys? We're like slowly closing the gap between us, and it's a little nerve-wracking because we're like, are we actually going to enjoy like spending a lot of time with these people or not? We don't know. And it was, I think, like 3 days before Christmas that we finally connected,
Mhm.
and they were like, do you guys want to spend Christmas together? And we were like, yeah, that sounds great. Like, we don't have any plans. They didn't have any plans. They have a 5-year-old daughter. I guess she was 3 at the time, and they really wanted to make sure that Christmas was special for her, and they liked the idea of being with other people. And so we meet up, which was kind of a weird feeling because it was like we met you last year, but we still don't really know you very well. And we decided on this camp in the middle of the Baja desert. We decided to leave the beach because it was supposed to be really windy. And we found this just amazing little nook in the desert, and ended up being, it's now forever known as Christmas camp, because Christmas Eve we went for a hike and we found this amazing like old cactus skeleton that we brought back to camp, and we decorated with lights, and we all had string lights that we strung up. And
Oh, so awesome.
Darcy had brought little gifts and some Christmas wrap, and we all kind of gathered little things in our campers to like gift each other, like silly stuff, but just stuff to be able to have gifts to give each other in the morning. And this story is a little, it has several layers, and it would be very unfair if I didn't mention that there was another couple involved in this.
Mm-hmm.
Another couple we had very randomly met at a campground in Colorado like 4 months prior. They were the camp hosts, and we were staying at this campground. And we briefly had a conversation in passing, and learned that they live on the road full time. And I said, "Oh, where do you guys spend your winter?" And they said, "Well, we're thinking of going to Baja this winter." And we were like, "Oh, well, we'll be down there. Let us know. We'll get in touch." And so we had been on the beach with them. We had just met up with them for the first time. Their names are Heather and Adam. We knew nothing about them essentially, and we were getting to know them when Josh and Darcy, this other couple that we had met the year prior at the ranch, when they came and met us the couple days before Christmas. So none of us really knew any of each other at all. And I said to Heather and Adam, "We're going to go spend Christmas with Josh and Darcy. Do you guys want to come?" And they were so excited because they'd been traveling alone for a little while. And so essentially, we have 7 strangers together on Christmas Day, and somehow it became the most magical Christmas celebration, maybe top 3 holiday memories in my life. All of us, I think if you find yourself in a foreign country on a holiday like Christmas, it's safe to say you have a little bit of family dysfunction that you might be getting some space from. So
Yeah. Well.
um, we all shared in that and bonded over that. And Christmas, that's what I was getting at. Heather happened to have a tiny little Christmas tree in her truck camper that she got out.
Mm-hmm.
So we managed to put together this Christmas in the desert that there was no plans for it. It just happened. And we had a Christmas morning with a tree and wrapped gifts and twinkle lights and a campfire. And it was people that were strangers and on that day became the closest of friends. And we've been close friends with them ever since. And had we not just randomly run into each of these couples, this would have never happened. But Mexico really facilitated that for us. And I'm so grateful for it.
It's so awesome. That's
Yeah,
such a great story. I love
it
it so
was really
much.
special. Yeah.
Do you play some Christmas music on your phones or something? Or
Oh yeah, yeah, all the things. It was the only thing we were missing from a traditional Christmas were walls and a roof.
yeah, right.
It was
And
just a
and
fully
depending on where you
outdoor.
live, snow, I guess. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
It
yeah.
was really great.
So awesome. And so you're typically introverted. So how does that, when you are in other places besides Mexico, maybe, especially if you're in the U.S. where there's no language barrier typically, are you still then are you guys pretty much kind of keeping to yourselves at that point, unless you're staying on some grounds where there's other people that you meet, or but if you just are like in a city somewhere or a town or wherever, do you pretty much stick to yourselves?
We stick to ourselves a lot. I would say we don't make a whole lot of like new friends. We don't find ourselves in situations where we kind of randomly meet people, but being in the US is when we have the time to meet like our already established friends or our
Mm-hmm.
family. Like our friends and family kind of have a general idea of what region we'll be in at what time of year. So like friends will hit us up and be like, "Oh, are you in Colorado?" And then they'll say, "Can you give us your coordinates? We're going to come camp with you this weekend," which is the best. I love that.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so that's kind of what our social life looks like in the like summer months.
Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah, yeah, it's great. I love that people kind of use us to take advantage and get out and do their like camping trip for the year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, do you have anywhere that you would like to kind of steer this from here? Otherwise, I definitely, looking at your list of some of these stories that you have, I have some ideas of places to take it, but I'm going to leave it in your hands if you have
You
something that
know,
you'd.
Yeah, I think because I the story I just told about Christmas camp really segues beautiful into one of my favorite Mexico stories.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we were so it was the seven of us and our three trucks and truck campers, and we were for Christmas camp was in the middle of the desert in Baja, and we were kind of traversing from the Sea of Cortez side of the peninsula over to the Pacific side. And the day after Christmas, when we packed up to leave camp, we were making our way to the Pacific, and we were under the impression that we would get to the Pacific that day, that it would be a few hours' drive on this dirt road that we were on. And this dirt road turned out to be, I don't know if we even topped out at 10 miles an hour. And I will, on a side note, say that, like, that our truck camper and our friends' truck campers, they're all four-wheel drive, very capable. We got the type of rig that we did because we love getting deep into um, like hard to reach places, really
Sure.
get off the beaten path. And so we were kind of looking for that type of adventure, but it was a little slower going than we had bargained for. And the day ended up being much, much longer than we anticipated. And as the sun is starting to set, we look at our map and we see that we have a long ways to go to get to the Pacific. And we better start figuring out where we're going to set up camp before it gets dark out.
And
And
just
there's
just
a,
just I'm
yeah,
assuming that this type of road, you're not seeing other traffic.
oh no.
I didn't think so. Okay.
No, every now and then you'll see a very rugged, like Mexican rancher that lives out in the middle of nowhere. And I think, yeah, maybe we saw two people that day. But yeah, we're essentially in the middle of nowhere. And which is funny that where I'm going with this, because you would find it kind of hard to believe. There is an app called iOverlander that is very heavily used for people like us that has pins for all kinds of places all around the world of places to camp or things like where to find resources like propane and water and all that. So we open up iOverlander, and I'm surprised any of us even looked because to me it was like, who the heck would have pinned anything out here? And sure enough, about like 2 or 3 miles down the road is this pin that says there's a little shop and a place to camp and showers. And we thought, this
Okay.
can't be right. Someone had to have dropped this pin in the wrong place, but let's drive to it and see what we find.
And is it getting dark at this point?
It's the sun is pretty low in the sky, but it's not set yet.
Okay.
And I think I would say it was 6 p.m. because I was like, oh my gosh, like, are we going to show up like at someone's place at 6 o'clock at night? Like, it
Yeah, but
feels a
at
little
this
weird.
rate, 2 miles is going to take you 3 hours.
I know. I know. So we pull up, and to the pin on the map turns out to be a little home of a couple named Jesus and Maria, and they have a little signboard out front with handwriting on it that says snacks, water, chips, ice, showers, a couple other things. And we're like,
Wow.
okay. Now, this turned out to be because the road we were on is also part of the Baja, I think it's called the Baja Divide Trail, which is like a really gnarly bicycle route that people ride. I think people are
Okay.
insane that ride this route because it is no joke. But this couple essentially knew that they were on that trail, that route, and were offering things to people passing by on bicycles.
Mm-hmm.
So we stop in and we're like, well, if they cater to the bikes, there's a good chance they'll, offer these services to us as well. And this is only our second ever year in Baja. And while we're trying to learn Spanish, I don't, have you tried learning a new language? It's hard.
I've tried learning Spanish about 16 times.
Yeah.
So,
It is really, really hard. I mean, we know the basics, but like once a native speaker starts rattling off in their native tongue, it's so
mm-hmm.
hard. So my husband took the lead, bless him. We were all just kind of, the rest of us were kind of hanging back with our eyes big, like, go, Mark, go. And he's able to get across that we're looking for a place to camp, something to eat, and showers. And Jesus says, points to where we can camp across the road, shows us that we can use their showers, and that Maria will cook us dinner. And I'm
Wow.
just blown away. And they give us a little tour through their home. And what's funny is it says outside on the board that it's a tienda, which is like a store. And it was a one room like shanty with a thatched roof, a dirt floor, no doors. On
Oh
one
my
side of
gosh.
the room is their bed, and on the other side of the room is this little so-called tienda, which with a shelf of like chips and soda, and it's all like super dusty and covered in dirt. And I'm just like, oh my god, like this is their home. Like this is wild. All seven of us are standing in there, and they take us to show us where we can take showers, which is their bathroom.
Oh my gosh.
Which I at first feel like very much like we're imposing on them,
Sure.
and yet they're like overflowing with pride and they're so excited to have us there.
It's
And
wonderful.
this was like, and this is why you get off the beaten path. Like this is why you go outside of the tourist destinations, because you can't experience this side of a country unless you do something like this. And he offered us, they had Wi-Fi, they had hot water, and there was something else. Gosh, I can't remember, but to us Americans looking in, we see. I hate to say
Cerveza?
this, but it's how I felt. Yeah, yeah. My immediate thought was like, they have so little, like, but from their perspective, you could feel that they had so much pride for everything that they had, even though it wasn't much. And I was like, there's a lot of Americans that would never even set foot into this place because they would be scared or nervous or, gosh, maybe even kind of grossed out a little bit just for how primitive it was. And I felt so privileged to have the experience to walk into someone's home and for them to welcome us in as, I mean, we're complete strangers that just showed up. And within a half hour's time, she had cooked us a full meal for all seven of us.
Wow.
It was very basic, but it came with, she made fresh homemade flour tortillas for our burritos.
Love it.
And we all got to shower and we had a safe place to park. And that is one of the most authentic, wonderful, memorable experiences we've ever had. And in the moment, I definitely was like a little uncomfortable just because of the language barrier, because they were trying so hard to talk to us. So you could tell they were excited to like share stories with us.
Hmm.
Pushing through that discomfort and allowing ourselves to have that experience and allowing ourselves to be like those people to take care of us in the way that they did was really special, and I'll never forget it.
Something else that we've sort of touched on because we definitely don't just share stories on this because things come out and we end up talking about life and just humanity a
Yeah,
lot. And we've talked about different places around the world where you may be driving by a place. Like my example was Puerto Rico, but I've had people talk about maybe places in the Dominican or other places, not even necessarily, South American or anything like that, like places, but other places around the world where you see people who you look at it and you go, oh, these people live in poverty.
right,
These people are just living their lives, and like you said, these people are very proud people,
right.
and they work hard, and what they have is what they have, and this is the life that they know.
Yep.
And so, okay, granted, maybe if they came to your house and really experienced what it's like, first of all, they may not even enjoy that because
Yeah.
it's too easy
Uh huh.
or whatever. But I think we have these assumptions in our mind that, oh, well, these people are just terribly unhappy and poor.
Yes.
And they're the exact opposite. They are so just enjoying life and what they have with each other and sharing it with strangers, and they're fulfilled. And sometimes
Exactly.
we're not, and we have.
I know. I think our culture puts a bit too much stock into material things are what will bring us happiness. And the story I just told is such a prime example that that's not necessarily, the sole thing that can make us happy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It puts a lot of things in perspective, which is why I really love experiencing other cultures.
1000%. And I've
Yeah.
said this multiple times too. Like, you only know the bubble that you've been in. So
Exactly.
if you don't break out of it, you will never understand what's truly out there and how other people live and experience life like fully, unless you really just get out there and travel. And it doesn't have to be across the world. It can be across the state. It can
Yeah.
be across the city if you've never really explored your own city.
Exactly. Just somewhere
So,
unfamiliar.
yeah, get out. And especially if you have places like Pittsburgh, for example, where I live, there's so many different ethnic communities that I haven't even fully explored myself. I have gone
Yeah.
into many of them, but there are definitely places that you can go, probably if you're near a larger city, where you can get some experience of other cultures without even having to leave your state. But
Absolutely.
you
I
really need to do
totally
it.
agree. Yeah. Yep.
So I can't believe we're creeping on an hour.
I
I'm
can't
this is
either.
insane. So I'm in no hurry, but tell me more stories because I know what you've told so far have been beautiful and wonderful and inspiring. And
Oh
so,
gosh. Do you have the list in front of you I sent you? Because now I'm like, where do I go from there?
and now you're blanking. Well, first of all, while we're in Mexico, someone's truck caught on fire. I don't know when that happened.
Yes. So this past winter, we decided for the first time to explore mainland Mexico. And that was something a few years back I never even, it wouldn't have never even crossed my mind as a thing to do. And I'd heard plenty of people say, like, Baja is safe, but I don't know about mainland. And so I kind of just, it wasn't even really a thing on my radar. Then we started meeting people that were like, "Oh yeah, we've been to mainland. It's great. Have you been?" And so then that started to kind of light the spark in us a little bit. And we decided last year was the year to give it a shot. Like, we're ready to see more of Mexico. We've heard it's wildly different than Baja. And our friends, so the friend group, Heather and Adam and Josh and Darcy and their daughter Hannah, who we spent Christmas with, we all boarded the ferry together. We in Baja. We started the whole trip in Baja, got on a ferry in La Paz. It was with all our trucks, and it took 16 hours to ferry over to Mazatlan, where we began our big winter exploring all of mainland Mexico. A little early on in that, we parted ways with Josh and Darcy. They were kind of on a different timeline than us, but Heather and Adam did the whole entire winter with us side by side as travel companions, which was really great to have them by our side.
So the trip you talked about before with the place in the middle of nowhere, that was a couple, 2, 3 years ago.
That was the year prior, 2 years ago, I think. Yes, 2 years ago.
So as since you all kind of met, I guess that sounds like it's been a good 3 years ago or 3 or 4 years ago. Has it been sort of an annual thing now?
Um, so it's, well, I'm trying to think now. I think it's been 3 consecutive winters that we've met up with each other down there.
Okay.
Gosh, I can't keep track of it now.
Yeah. No, that's cool. That's cool. And I like
It's
the idea of
very
it being
cool.
sort of an annual thing, like
Yeah, it, being
something
that,
to look forward to.
yeah, like I said, we're introverts. It's so unexpected to have found such good friends and people that we really enjoy traveling with, because traveling side by side and like being neighbors with one another for weeks and months on end is not something you can do with just anybody.
Mm-hmm. thousand
To have,
percent.
yeah, to have found people that we really mesh well with and can do that is a very special thing.
There's times that even like a couple, husband, wife, 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 husband, husband, like whatever, a couple can just get on each other's nerves and not be great travel companions. So for
For
you
sure, yeah.
to have each other and then have met these other couples that you can spend day after day after day together. And I don't know, like maybe you'd still try to take some time for yourselves where you go off maybe hiking together, just you and Mark, right?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
whatever. But to be able to spend that much time with other couples is that's incredible.
It is. And I think it's because we're all introverts, and like Heather and Adam, us all, I think we were together for like 3 months, something like that. We really respect each other's time and space because we know that we all need our downtime.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really helpful. So Yeah, so we were down, we Oaxaca, the state of Oaxaca is as far south as we went, which would be you have Oaxaca and then you have the state of Chiapas and then you have Guatemala. So that's how close we were to the Guatemala border. And we had just begun our trajectory back north. So we were as far south as we went for the whole trip. And we had just left our campsite that morning, and Mark is in the lead. And all of a sudden, he says some expletives, like he's like curses and pulls over really quickly. And I thought we were getting pulled over by a cop. And next thing I know, he grabs our fire extinguisher and goes running after Heather and Adam's truck, to which I get out of our truck and see that Heather and Adam's truck is on fire.
What part of it is on fire?
The engine. The
No.
Yeah, so the amount of things that go rushing through your mind in split second is really amazing, because you're just like, what does this mean? So let me back up and kind of, I need to paint a better picture because this has a lot to do with my experience of this day. We Are you familiar with the US like travel advisory website?
Yes.
The State
Yes.
Department puts it out for all, like, every country in the world, and it labels like the different, it's like they'll have a red label for do not travel, or
Mm-hmm.
an orange
Orange.
label that's like exercise extreme caution. And so they have those labels for every state in Mexico. And there are like a handful of red states that says do not travel to. And for the first part of the trip, I was like, I don't want to go to a red state. Like, let's avoid the red states at all costs. And then it was becoming really prohibitive to like plan our routes to try to get around the red states. And I started talking to other travelers, like, how closely do you pay attention to this map? Like, how accurate is it? Because if you scroll way, 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 way down to the very bottom, in small print, it says last updated April 2024. Or no, 2020. It was almost a year old. So that was frustrating to me because it didn't feel
Mm-hmm.
reliable. And all the other travelers I spoke to said, we disregard that. It doesn't make any sense to us. So I started to get more open to the idea of traveling through a red state. And where the truck, Heather and Adam's truck car, where their truck caught fire was the first red state we entered.
So
And
your mind
so
went to bad things.
my initial thought is like, we're going to have to camp on the street of this town. Will we be safe here? Because I figured, I'm like, the truck is out of commission. It's going to take probably a few days to figure out even what our next move is. And I'm so Mark runs off with the fire extinguisher. Adam, thank goodness, acted superhuman fast and had a fire extinguisher, which this is my message to anyone traveling in an RV or like anything that has, like, have a fire extinguisher.
Or
This day
multiple.
could, yeah, this day could have ended in a totally different way if he didn't have that and had it easy to access. So he got the fire put out before Mark even got to him, which is incredible. And Heather, they get their two dogs out of the cab, and her and I sit on the curb with the dogs while Mark and Adam are assessing the damage. And so I'm on like high alert. Like in Mexico, there's a lot, like, I like to say life is lived outdoors. Like, people are just constantly outside. They walk a lot from place to place. And so you're constantly getting to see the people of a place. And so
And at
I'm
this point, you're
waving.
not on a back dirt road where only
No,
bike
we're in a
riders
town.
go. Okay.
Yeah. Luckily, it's a small town, but it's a town. And so I'm waving and saying hello to everyone, or saying buenos dias, because I'm like, that's my gauge. Like, how they respond is my gauge to how they feel about us being there. And everyone was so friendly. And I'll add that Adam was blocking an entire intersection.
Oh,
So
wow.
that was another thing that was like, are they going to get angry at us gringos that are blocking their intersection?
Right.
And the very first couple I saw comes up to me and they shake my hand and they say, uh, welcome to Kapala. And like, they were like excited to see us there, even though, we're not there for a great reason. But um, I'm slowly kind of, my nerves are calming because I'm going, okay, I think that there's nothing to be alarmed about here. And then I find out that by the grace of God, the only thing that burned was the battery and the cables.
Oh, wow.
So we needed to source a new battery, but the truck could still be driven, which was just amazing because I'm
That's
not
incredible. Like, no
really.
belts melted or
I
anything.
don't know how
Like,
that's possible because, and they would have needed to, I think, get a tow truck to take them the several thousand miles to the border, and then
oh,
I don't know
jeez.
how they even would have gotten their truck across the border. It would have been an absolute nightmare. So we're just in shock. And it's a Sunday in Mexico, and Sundays are like pretty sacred in Mexico. People aren't
Of
working.
course it's a Sunday. Of
Yeah.
course.
And Mark and I are like, we've got to go try to go find a battery. And so we're driving around town. The first two places we strike out, they're closed. The third place is actually open. We're shocked. And now Mark's limited Spanish is really put to the test because while we've made progress in our Spanish learning journey, talking automotive parts is like a whole other ballgame.
Oh, my gosh.
So he manages through the like Google Translate app. It took about
Mm-hmm.
30 minutes of fumbling, and it turned out they had two battery options for us, which was
Oh, my
shocking.
gosh.
Our next option would have been Acapulco, which was about 2 hours north, which was totally
Jeez.
manageable. But the fact that we like could get hands on a battery and cables right then and there in 3 hours time, we were back on the road, and I was
That is
just
so incredible.
mind blown that they were okay. I mean, that, so they live in their truck like we do. They could have lost their entire home in that
Mm-hmm.
situation, which was just devastating to think of. So, and it's a great reason to have travel companions because we were able to just offer them support. And yes, they're okay. Everything was worked out, but it was, for a moment there, was pretty scary, and it drove the point home that the whole time we're like, you know, on the lookout for cartel because everyone's like, don't get don't get into it in the crossfire of the cartel, all that. And it's
Oh,
like
my gosh.
there's so many other dangers at play in life. I don't care where you are or who you are. Like, there's danger always lurking, and you can't predict it. You just have to be ready to roll with the punches and take it as it comes, and that's exactly what happened.
That's so awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, people are good. People are mostly good.
they are. Everyone in
So,
that town was absolutely lovely.
yeah, that's great.
We, I
So,
will say, went on to drive through three more red states and didn't have a single bad encounter or anything that even seemed sketchy. Nothing.
I guess I'm not surprised.
I'm not now either, and I'm glad that we did that to kind of help me see that. And I even heard from some people say that they were sad that their state has gotten a bad rap because tourists no longer come because of that label.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely keep brushing up on your Spanish, though. That's definitely a good thing, I think.
it is. It's
So,
hard, but it's worth it. Yeah.
so is there anything else? Because I do want to ask you briefly, at least, about that week that you spent in Alaska
Yeah.
before we get to my final five questions that I have for you. But I also want to, you know, because you've spent so much time in Mexico, and I feel like you probably have some other stories there. Before we leave there, is there anything else that you can think of? You mentioned something about getting caught in a rip current at one point, which sounds terrifying. If that's something
Yes.
you'd like to share.
Yeah, so that happened only 2 days after the fire. So
Oh my
we had
gosh.
a full week that week. And I'd say the fire was Heather and Adam's probably hardest day of the trip. And then the rip current was Mark and I's hardest day of the trip. We don't have a whole lot of experience swimming in the ocean. and we were staying at a campground, and we were out playing in the waves only up to barely even up to our waist. And because I was being cautious, I got nervous because there were breaking waves big enough to make me kind of think, is this safe? And so
That's about as far as I like to go as well.
yeah, and then one big wave came in, and then the next thing I knew, I couldn't touch bottom anymore, and I couldn't get back, and it was pulling me out pretty pretty quick.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it happened so fast. I was just absolutely blown away by how fast it happened, how I was felt completely in control to completely out of control in a millisecond. And I only vaguely knew what a rip current was, and I had watched like one YouTube video on it that, said to swim parallel to the beach. And in that moment, that was kind of a joke because all I could really focus on was keeping my head above water because the waves were breaking over me. I'd lost sight of Mark. I could only hope that he was okay. And while I'm trying to calculate kind of what to do next, I didn't get a full breath when the next wave came over me and I got submerged. And I started to panic. And it was wild how fast my brain said, "You cannot panic. That's how you'll die." And a wave of calm came over me while I was underwater. And then I
Jeez.
came up, and it was like, just work on being able to breathe. And just, that's all you have to, like, that's all that matters right now. And looking back, I think I did fight too hard trying to get back in. I was definitely expending too much energy trying to get back in. But eventually, once the set of waves passed, the kind of strength of the current relaxed, and I was able to barely dig my toes into the sand and pull myself out. And I would say the whole thing lasted 3 minutes, maybe five. But it was one of the scariest things I've ever encountered. And when I got out of the water, I turned back and looked and saw that Mark was still caught in it, and it was about a minute more before he got out.
Oh my gosh.
And
How does he recount that?
he is he's a very calm individual. He's not someone that gets very worked up about anything. He performs excellent under pressure. He is a pilot and knows how to remain calm. He's been in some gnarly situations in the air that he has handled really gracefully, and so I wasn't surprised that he handled it really well. But he isn't someone that speaks dramatically about anything, and so when he referred to it as a near death experience, that gave me chills to hear him say that
Wow.
after the fact. Yeah, because at first I thought, am I exaggerating here? And then I heard him say that, and I was like, okay, that was really something. And but what really messed with our heads was that we stayed at the same campground for another week, and every day we were watching people go out and swim and play in the waves, and we thought, are we crazy? Like, what the heck happened to us?
You just caught a
And
bad moment.
it was 4 days later that Mark was like, okay, I'm not going to live in fear. I'm going back
Mm-hmm.
out. And he went out
Yes.
on a boogie board.
That's what I was
It
going to
wasn't,
ask you. Who went back in
yeah,
first? When did you go back in? You had to go back
yeah.
in.
I wasn't ready for it. So I sat on the beach with a camera and a really long lens. I was keeping a close eye on him. And he chose to go not to the exact same spot, up the beach a little bit. Of course, at this point, 4 days later, we'd watched countless YouTube videos on rip currents. I had read a whole book by that point. Like,
Oh my
give
gosh.
me all the knowledge so this doesn't happen again.
Yes.
And he's out boogie boarding and having a great time. And I watch a couple from the same campground head out the same exact spot that we had been in when we got
Oh
caught in the
no.
current. So I have a very close eye on them. And I noted they're playing in the waves just like we were, and I noticed it the second it happened. They went from having a great time to all I could see were each of their heads just barely bobbing on the water. And I zoom in because I happen to have a really long lens on me, and I can see a look of terror in the man's face.
Oh my
And
God.
I thought, oh my God, it's happening to them. And then I see Mark paddling over to them, which gets me extremely nervous because I
Mm-hmm.
know that helping someone who might be drowning is the fastest way for yourself to drown. And his wife starts screaming, help, help. And Mark gets over there. And he later told me that he said very explicitly, hold on to the board, do not grab onto me. And the man grabbed on. The woman was fine. She said, I'm a strong swimmer. I'm okay. But the man was freaking out.
Mm-hmm.
And they just bobbed. They just sat there and tread water for probably 5 minutes. And then it was again the same thing. The set passed, and all of a sudden they were able to just stand up and walk out of the water.
Oh my God.
And the man ran out and then dropped to the ground, and we watched. He sat there for probably 20 minutes just in shock. And I don't know that he would have made it if Mark wasn't out there. And I just
Yeah.
can't believe that, like, if that hadn't happened to us, Mark wouldn't have recognized it happening to them.
Yeah.
Because you can't really tell from a distance that something like what's happening. And it gives me chills to this day because I think it's very likely he saved that guy's life, and that
Mark's a
only was
freaking
possible because
hero.
we got ourselves into the situation that we did.
Mark's a hero. That's incredible.
Yeah,
That's
we learned a
absolutely
lot
incredible.
about the ocean, and I
Water's no
kind
joke.
of, the amount of people that die in rip currents, I feel like it's not talked about enough. And if anyone listening to this doesn't know about it and you spend any time in the ocean, please educate yourself because it's scary.
Can you like? Can you? What do they call it when you're reading? You're supposed to read a novel and you read the little condensed version. What's that called?
Oh, like the Cliffs Notes?
Cliff notes. Can you cliff note version exactly what a rip current is and like in like 2 minutes, just like what happens to like how does that happen?
Yeah, it's like a disturbance in the water that can either be formed by like where waves are kind of meeting each other in like an irregular pattern. And also, by the way, I'm not an expert, but this is my version of what I understand it to be.
Mm-hmm.
Or there's like a what do you want to call it? Like underwater, there's a little ravine or something where the water is kind of forming an outgoing river current
Mm-hmm.
and you can't see it. And so there's a current that's forming and going out to the ocean. Now, I wish I could share visual aids on this because Mark did send our drone up and got a fantastic drone shot that shows all the sand funneling out in the current, being pulled out into the ocean. So you can see a visual of what the current is doing.
If you have,
And
if any of that is photograph, and if not, I'll make it a photograph. I will definitely post that once we air the
yeah,
episode.
I'll send you a photo. It's great. It's very helpful. I think the biggest takeaway from the book I read was he said if you are at a beach with breaking waves, you don't know how to recognize a rip current and you're not a strong swimmer, don't take the chance and just don't get in the water.
Is there sort of like with like earthquakes, there's fault lines? Because it sounds like that specific place that you were in, that they were in, was the same place, and it sounds like maybe that's a recurring thing in that specific location.
Yeah, so we were kind of in like a half moon shaped like cove with real sharp rocks on either side. So the way the waves were breaking, they were kind of like two different sets of waves that were converging where this happened that created this really turbulent water. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And when you take
Yeah.
into consideration, like I know this just from what I've read or seen, that, like you said, and granted that's not super deep there, but there
Yeah,
are definitely different currents at different levels of water. Up the water on the surface can be traveling in one direction, but
exactly.
underwater is traveling in a completely different direction. And so,
Exactly.
yeah, that's just
Yes.
crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, it humbled us for sure. The ocean is an extremely powerful force.
Yeah, I love near
Yeah.
death experiences. We don't get enough of them on here, and I emphasize the near part because
Right.
I don't like
Well, this
death experiences, but
yeah, there's no stories to tell with that.
no, not really. No,
Uh,
so that's awesome. So I do want to just in being respectful of time. I still want to get to Alaska just to know if there was anything just
Sure,
that
yeah.
jumped out at
I
you.
have
I'm
tons
sure
of
it was
time too, so
beautiful.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't like the episodes to go too
sure.
long,
Of
but
course.
I also love this conversation. So
Great. Yeah, I'll share a favorite memory from Alaska. It's a brief story, but it will remain with me until the end of time. We were in Wrangell St. Elias National Park, and we were camped right on the edge of a lake. And that morning, I was in the bed of the truck making our bed, and Mark was right outside the truck, and he kind of nudged me, and he was like, "Look." And I look up, and here comes a moose that is walking, not swimming, but walking in the lake up to the water is up to its chest, or no, its shoulder, and it's making a wake behind it because it's such a large animal. And it's probably 10 feet from the shoreline, so probably 20 feet from us. It's, I don't know, 7 o'clock in the morning. The water is smooth as glass. It's perfectly silent out. Literally, the only noise you can hear is the wake from the moose going past.
which is a massive creature, right?
Massive creature. And we're just standing there with our jaws dropped, and this animal doesn't give any cares for us at all, which really, that was one of the best parts to me. That shows how protected they are there because it wasn't skittish towards us at
Mm-hmm.
all. And this moment lasted maybe, I don't know, a minute, and yet it made such an impression on us because we just felt on that in that moment, and our entire time in Canada and Alaska felt really insignificant as humans, and in this, the biggest, most expansive, wild part of nature we've ever been in. And that was so cool.
So awesome. What
Yeah.
was the scenery like there?
Well, so our Coloradans were used to big, massive
Mm.
mountains,
Mm-hmm.
and Alaska had no shortage of that. And I think I would say what was really special about this trip, our friend who we helped move is a pilot who was starting a job doing glacier tours, like landing on glaciers around Denali was
Oh my
his new
gosh!
job.
Wow.
And he gifted us with a glacier flight. So I guess I'm bringing this up because if you're going to ask what the scenery was like there, you just can't help but think of Denali. I think anyone that goes to Alaska really hopes to see Denali, and it's a very elusive thing because it's usually shrouded in clouds. And it was real hit or miss. When we took off that day, they were like, we don't know, if we're going to be able to see it or not, and if we don't know if we're going to get clearing to land on the glacier. It's not looking great. And then it cleared up right as we got up close to Denali, and just the most massive, most beautiful mountain you could ever imagine. And then we touched down on a glacier, and I just cried immediately because I mean, how many people can say they've landed on a glacier and gotten to walk around on it? And that just felt like such a kind of quintessential Alaska thing to do, and was really, really special.
I feel like I've talked to a couple of people who have been to Antarctica, and they talk about even though there's not a lot of color there, it's so pure and it's so untouched and it's just
Sure.
so natural and just so beautiful, and the water is calm, and you know it's just otherworldly in a way, and I feel like
Yeah.
that's probably similar.
Very much so. I feel like Canada, northern Canada and Alaska, it just doesn't feel like humans have gotten their hands all over everything. It hasn't been developed in the way that the lower 48 has. It feels so wild. So in that sense, you feel like you're stepping back in time. And there's something almost that it almost feels like it satisfies something primitive in you to be able to experience that you can't, that's a hard thing to find.
Yeah, well, there's not many places on earth that you can really go, like you said, that are just raw beauty like that.
Yeah. Like seeing animals thrive up there in the way that they do was so cool. In Canada, we saw I think like 8 bears in one day,
Mm.
and I don't know that we saw that many people.
Wow.
So yeah, it's really cool.
And when you see bears like that, or is it almost majestic, or is it scary, or is it both? If you have your
Absolutely, it's both.
distance, I mean, it's okay.
Yeah, you're mesmerized and you want to just stare, but you also are a little scared for your life.
And these are black bears, brown bears.
Both. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm. Yeah, there's a little bit of everything going on up there. And I had to kind of quickly surrender to the fact in this trip that we weren't getting away from bears because one of our first camps we pulled into, there was a bear right down the road from the camp we were pulling into. And I was like, I don't really want to camp here. It feels a little close. And our friends were nice enough to be like, that's fine. Let's find somewhere else. And we did. And the very next night, same exact thing happened. And I was like, all right, guys, I know I have to just suck it up and deal with it. We're not getting away from the bears.
no, I mean, you're in their home, so
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, it's crazy. You just don't mess with them, I guess.
Respect them. Don't, exercise common sense. Don't leave food wrappers and things outside. And
Sure.
yeah.
And don't sleep outside probably by yourself.
Yeah, people that tent camp in that environment, they're a different kind of adventurer than me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's much. That's a little much.
Yeah.
So I think let's do this. Unless there's something else that stands out at you that you definitely want to share before I get to my 5 questions, which I'll leave that open to you. Anything
No,
that's come to mind?
thank you for the opportunity to share some of my favorite stories. This has been great. There's many more, but I'm not, we could do that another time. Definitely some
Yeah.
of the highlights have had the opportunity to be shared here, and it's awesome.
Don't thank me. Thank you. This has been incredible. So I do have 5 final questions, which I don't think I shared with you beforehand. Did I?
You did. I
I
did give,
did?
well, you,
Okay.
you told me I could go listen in and find them, so I did.
Okay.
I like to be
Ah,
prepared.
that's okay. All right. But if while we're talking about these, if there's anything else that comes to mind that, we have more time. So
Okay.
if anything, takes you a little bit and makes you kind of think back and you want to tell more, you're more than welcome.
Okay.
So question number one, which question number one is, of all the places in the world that you've been outside of your own home, where is the most favorite meal experience that you've ever had?
Guess what? You're hitting me with one that I must have listened to a different episode or something because I didn't
Yes.
get that
I may have
question.
changed the wording because early on I
Okay.
used to just ask what was your favorite meal. And I've
Okay.
changed it because I have found that actually with people, I've had one or two guests that have said what their experience was that was their favorite, and they couldn't even remember the food they had. So it was
Oh, really?
truly about the experience itself. And so that's why
Yeah.
I'm very careful to word it the way I do now.
Yeah. Some of our, Mark and I love trying restaurants no matter where we are because it's just a great way to see the local, get to experience that place. And so a lot of our favorite memories revolve around food, I think. And so there's many I could go with, and I'm going to go with the very first one that comes to mind. And it was at a little pizza place in a tiny, very cool, quirky, arty little town in Arizona called Bisbee. It's down on the southeast corner near the Mexico border.
Okay.
And we walked there from our the RV park that we were camped at, and it was just one of those places like I feel like it's not every day that you go to a restaurant where you get the trifecta of fantastic food, exceptional service, and incredible ambiance. And it was all of those things. And yeah, it was just one of those perfect nights. We walked home under the town has those great like string lights that kind of line their blocks of downtown,
I love it.
and everyone had gone home and it was just us walking beneath the string lights, and we just had full bellies from the best pizza. And yeah, it's one of those things that's like cannot be recreated, and I'm just so glad that we got to have that experience. So if you're ever in Bisbee, go to Screaming Banshee Pizza. Highly recommend.
Do you remember exactly what you ate?
I know, no, I don't. A really good pizza.
Yeah. What is your go-to for toppings?
Well, I'm like an olive oil base kind of girl with like veggies. Yeah, but
So you
I
take
know.
a good white pizza
Yeah, for
also.
sure. But you know,
Although
pizza all around is
that's not
just
olive oil based. That's actually cheese based. It's ricotta cheese, right? I
yeah.
think, but
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah.
But either way, yeah,
I like
awesome.
a lot of pizza, any kind.
That's awesome. I
Yeah.
love a place where you might even get like live music as well, or something like that is really cool.
Yeah, they didn't have live music there, but there just was the place was full and it just had that hum of just people having a great night. It had to have been like a Friday or Saturday night. And you just felt like a vibration of everyone just having a great time. And we were sitting at the counter where we could watch all the pizzas being made. And
Mm-hmm.
that was really fun too, because the guys just seemed like they were really, like they enjoyed their job. They enjoyed putting out great pizzas, and that was fun too.
So great. I've been to a
Yeah.
couple places that have like that. When you get that from the staff, where you can tell they're having fun with their job, it really
Yeah.
makes you feel like this is going to be a great meal as it is.
Yes.
There's a place
Yes.
that we went to in New York City, which is now closed. It closed, actually, I think even before the pandemic, which I was very sad about. But it was an Asian restaurant, and where we sat was like up at a bar right in front of where they were making the meals, whatever it was they made, and they served everything to you if you were sitting there on like these big wooden, almost like what you would grab a pizza out of an oven with, but they
Mm-hmm.
would, but they, whenever they had orders or whatever, I don't even know what they were saying to each other, but there were so many times where like one person from one area of the restaurant would shout, and then other people that worked there from the other area would shout back something else. And I didn't understand them, but it was just the coolest thing. Like they just had this vibe and just this cool, like, I don't want to say camaraderie, but you know what I mean? Like they have this rhythm
Yeah.
and stuff. It was just
Isn't that
awesome.
great? Like you don't even know what's going on, but it's just great.
Yeah, and they brought in, at least while we were there, they brought in somebody who was an artist who just while we were eating had this huge sheet of paper on the floor of the dining room and was just drawing. I don't know if they were using charcoals, I don't remember. But, you know, by the time we left, like there was this beautiful picture that they had made on
Wow.
the floor, and it was just awesome.
How
Food was
cool.
fantastic, and it's gone, and it's so sad.
Yeah, those are hard losses.
Yeah, absolutely. But
Yeah.
I digress. So, question two, which I'm going to assume that you do know, because this one hasn't changed. So, of all the places in the world that you have been, if I even offered you a free trip with AAA coverage and everything, you would say, "Nah, I'm good. I don't want to go back."
So both Mark and myself are not really like city people and definitely not like tourist hub type people. And we spent time in both Puerto Vallarta and Mazatlan this year. And I know those are very popular places to go. And I am not like shunning them, they're just not our style. And we felt very out of place in both of those spots. And yeah, that was enough for me. I don't need to go back.
All right. No, that's very fair. Everyone's tastes are different and everyone's likes are different. And we've also discussed on the
Exactly.
podcast many times that there is a distinct difference between vacationing and traveling. And so if you're in
Yes.
it for traveling, it's different. Like the places that you're going to go, and you know, you're not going to probably go to a resort, you
Right.
know, and
Yes.
enjoy yourself, because that's not what you're into, unless that's what you just want to unwind and relax for a week or a weekend or whatever.
Exactly. If I was going on a week vacation and I just wanted to be able to just
Just be
relax, like
pampered and
yes, that's where it would be at. But in the way we travel, those places are actually very hard to navigate and find places to stay and they're more expensive. So it's just yeah, just a different style.
listen. My take is Aruba, and most of the people I talk to when I say that are like, "Are you crazy?" I think I've met one other person that had the exact same feeling that I did. It's too
Really?
windy and
Mhm.
it's just not enjoyable. Like for me to even go off the resort and do, my favorite thing we did was riding four wheelers on the beach. And that wasn't even enjoyable because the tour guide that we had was like, stay together, stay together, stay together. Well, I'm the guy on the highway that keeps as much, I'll keep enough room on the highway for three or four cars to be able to merge in front of me, because
Uh-huh.
I'm a safe driver. I don't need to
Yeah.
be riding somebody's butt, because that doesn't make
Yep.
sense. It doesn't get me anywhere any faster. And so I'm keeping my distance, not only because we're driving pretty fast, but I can't see anything. because there's
Yeah,
so much sand and dust and dirt being kicked up.
that's not
They
fun.
stopped so many times to yell at me, and I mean yell at me. And I'm just
Oh,
like, I'm sorry, like I can't go any faster. And
well,
that the whole trip was just not enjoyable. It was beautiful,
oh,
beautiful, and the food was fantastic, but I can't even sit on the beach and have a drink because the drink tips over when the wind kicks up. It's just like,
oh, yeah.
no thanks.
Wind will kill the fun real quick.
It does, but if you don't have
Yeah.
the wind in Aruba, you're miserable. So
Sure. Yeah. So you got to have just the right amount of wind. So now you're asking for a lot.
yeah, so no thanks, Aruba.
Oh,
Everyone else
that's
can go
funny.
there.
Yeah.
So okay, flipping that around, as I do. Question number 3 is of all the places in the world that you have been, and I'm gonna modify this and say you can't say a specific place in Mexico because you keep going back. You can't. Well, it's just you definitely can't say Baja.
Okay.
Where in the world do you have to go again?
That would be British Columbia. That the whole like we drove the length of it and it just felt like barely scratched the surface. I was just blown away. I mean, the mountains there are never ending. It made Colorado look like a little tiny little toy park compared to British Columbia, and the color of
Wow,
the water there and the sparse, like, you can get away from it all and you can get really far into the backcountry and explore and get away from people. And there's just, oh, there's so much to see. And the people are so unbelievably friendly. I really hope we can spend at least a month sometime in British Columbia.
excellent.
Yeah.
Very okay. Yeah, unexpected. Very. That's awesome. Great answer. Great answer. What color is the water?
It's like this turquoise color. It's something to do with, I think it's like a mineral coming off of the glaciers or something. And it's like a milky turquoise. It's very unique.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So question 4 is of all the places in the world that you have not been, and you have quite a lot to choose from,
Yeah.
even though you've been a lot of places. Where in the world, not bucket list, but where in the world, one or two places you absolutely have to get to?
Well,
And you know why I
I'm
say
going
not
to,
bucket list, right? Because, like I said, my bucket list is massive.
I would say either Patagonia in Chile and Argentina. Actually, is it also Chile and Argentina? Maybe it's just Argentina. I can't remember. Or I have always like really been drawn to driving either the Dempster Highway or the Dalton Highway. The Dempster Highway goes all the way to the Arctic Ocean in Canada, and the Dalton Highway goes to the Arctic Circle and it falls just short of the Arctic Ocean in Alaska, but you can drive both of those roads through some extremely remote territory. Um, the thought of being able to drive all the way, like pull my truck up to the Arctic Ocean and do a cold plunge, just sounds like the coolest thing to be able to say I've done.
Literally.
And yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, that's something I would love to do sometime.
That's very awesome, and I'm glad that this question came up and you said it the way your answer the way you did. Because one thing I meant to ask you somewhere in the middle of all of this, and I forgot, was would you ever consider driving further south through Central America beyond
Yes,
Mexico?
yes. So the Pan American Highway is um, a continuous road that runs from the Arctic Ocean in Alaska all the way to the tip of South America in Argentina. There is a like 100-mile stretch between Panama and Colombia that you have to ship your vehicle because there's not a road there. But it is definitely something we're constantly talking about doing. And I could very much see us doing that. It feels like a very big commitment. So we're trying to be very thoughtful about making that decision. But I would certainly love to be able to say when I'm old and gray and can't, drive around the world anymore, to be able to say that we drove to South America would be pretty cool.
When you're owning your own trailer park or whatever park you want to call it, where you're hosting others like
Yeah,
yourself in Mexico,
yeah,
whatever.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I would love to hear a story one day where you RV all the way to, say Costa Rica or maybe even
Yeah,
further south into like Peru or something like that. Would be,
yeah. That's pretty much what my YouTube feed is filled with now is the
oh
people that
my
do that.
gosh, what an
Yeah.
incredible trip that could be.
Yeah, it's amazing to me that it's even something you can do.
So I'm sad to say that this is the last question. This has been one of the most fun episodes I've had.
Thank
So
you.
absolutely, thank you. Of all, not of all. I'm done with the of alls. So you know the answer to question number 5 because you know what your itinerary is going to be, or maybe you don't because you guys don't plan very well. Where are you going? So right now, I know you're kind of in Colorado, right? Because this is your
Yes.
season for weddings and such. But do
Yes.
you have an idea of where you're going next?
Yeah, I'll give you the short term and the slightly longer term answer. In the short term, I will tell you that next week we are determined to go find some corners of Colorado that we've never been, which is a little bit of a task for us because we know a lot of Colorado, but there's still a lot of roads to be discovered here, and we're pretty excited at that kind of setting that challenge for ourselves. Like, let's go find somewhere we've never been and really get ourselves in deep somewhere into the mountains. So that's happening next week. I'm excited for that. And then because we did a pretty massive trip around Mexico this past winter, this coming winter, once we're done with our weddings, we will return to Baja. And we have a goal this year of trying to slow down and just savor our travels more without feeling like we constantly need to be on the move. I feel like I get a lot of reward and just richness from our travels through really slowing down and not feeling like we do constantly have to go somewhere new or level up or be doing the next greatest thing. And so we're going to try doing more longer stints on beaches, a week, maybe even 2 weeks if we can conserve enough water to do so. And that'll give us time to really see more nuance and experience more sea life and maybe meet more people. And just when you're constantly moving, it's harder to, like I said, experience that nuance. So we're hoping maybe that'll give us the chance to see some more depth in Baja that we haven't seen before.
Excellent. Anything, Michelle, that you'd like to add before I hit stop on the episode?
uh, I don't think so. I will just say that I'm so thrilled I got to have this conversation with you, and I'm really hopeful that maybe someone out there hears it and it sparks an idea in them of something they've never thought about doing or any somewhere they haven't thought about going. And if you want more inspiration about living unconventionally, please go to our website because I love promoting kind of living outside the box and doing things a little different. So thank you for the platform to share here.
Of course, twohappycampers.com. Check it out
Yes.
and
Yes.
read a lot and be inspired further. So
Yes. Yes. We'd love to see you
awesome.
there.
Thank you so much for this and for spending this time with me. And I look forward to kind of keeping an eye on what you guys are up to. And I will definitely be back in touch with you maybe sometime early next year once we get to maybe springtime and we can talk about what you did over the winter and what kind of trouble you got yourselves into and what
There'll
caught on fire and
inevitably be
who almost
stories.
drowned and
Yeah.
so yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Yeah, this has been great. Thank you. And there's another episode of the Where Have You Been podcast in the books. Thank you so much for listening today. There was another great guest with some great stories, as always, and I hope that you will support all of the guests by checking out the show notes and going to their web pages, seeing any socials and projects that they may have going on. And please, again, I'll ask as always to like, subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. It really does help to allow the podcast to grow and reach more people, and I appreciate you for doing that. Also, if you haven't done so, check out the website, whybpodcast.com, where you can find blog posts. If you'd like to be a guest, please register to be a guest on the site. And check out the merch page. There's some really cool stuff if you're interested in representing the pod, along with some other cool travel items and apparel that I'm working on every day as well. Join me again next week for another great guest with more incredible stories. New episodes drop every Sunday just after midnight Eastern Time. Until then, thank you for being here, and have a great day.